Well, before we catch up with Emily Ehman, we're starting with Kirsten Bernthal Booth from Creighton. And as I was getting ready for this, Brenda said, "You're going to wear a Penn State shirt to talk to her?" And I said, "Well, yeah, because it guarantees that I'll finally have a Creighton volleyball shirt by the end of the week." I got that going for me. And big props to Katie for hooking me up last week. And,
Their budget's like 8 times the size of ours, Lee, come on.
well, that's true. Send me a bill. Uh, Before we talk about your team, which is an absolutely fabulous team, tell people about what you did yesterday on Sunday and what time you got up.
Well, I have a freshman daughter at Northern Iowa, which is in Cedar Falls, Iowa, which is about 4 hours from, Omaha, so we got the rest of the family up. We had a free day, so we left about 8 a.m. and, rolled back in about 10 p.m. last night, so we watched Reese lose to SMU in 4, and then we went to grab a bite, got to see her dorm room for the first time, and then, headed home, so it was well worth the time and a lot of fun.
Now, that's the first time you've seen Reese play as a spectator. What was no?
Well, I got to see her play Rice at the tournament in Louisville, and so
Oh,
I got
that's
to see
true.
all 3 matches, but I was scouting when they played Louisville, but the Rice match, because we played them first, so I sat with the parents in the Rice match because 'cause we'd already played Rice.
What was it like to play against her? That must have been pretty cool.
It was, honestly, I think for both of us, we didn't think much of it during it. I noticed her when she'd sub in. They run a 6-2, and she's one of the 2 setters. So when she'd sub in, I always look at a server. So I'd see her then and be like, "Oh, that's my daughter." But beyond that, I didn't. Uh, we did have a funny moment. We were in control at this point. It's like mid to late in the third set, and there's an overpass, and Kiara Reinhart, one of our middles, pops it, and I think Kiara thought she faced Reese. I think she got her in the chest, and Kiara turns and she's like, "I'm so sorry, coach. I didn't mean to hit your daughter." And I was like, "Kiara, you're on the bench, girl. That's it. You can't go after my kid." So, but it was fun. And, I think it's been interesting being on this side of it, Lee, because all the things that you tell in the recruiting process, um, I think are true. You want her to find her people. You want her to be at a place that if something goes down, that the coaches are going to care about her more than just as an athlete. And, and she's at a place with good culture and good people at the helm, as you know. So that's been a blessing.
Of course, Bobby Peterson at Northern Iowa, one of the nicest people, a great coach, and this is the she's played against her own kid this year, which she had before when her other daughter was at Texas,
Yep.
and now this year, Jen Petrie at San Diego got to play against her daughter from Boston College, and this past weekend, Jenny Volpe from Rice got to play against her daughter at TCU, and that's and are there any others that I'm missing? I mean, that's 4 of you right there.
Gosh, those are the ones that I know of. And, Bobby and Jenny and I were all at the same tournament. So we all kind of commiserated on that and called Danny, the Louisville coach, Danny Busby, so young because she's the little puppy in the group of all of us old
Oh,
mothers. But
that year
I
that
have
all
not
of you
talked to
were in the same regional?
what?
That year that all of you were in the same regional. Is that what you meant?
No,
Oh, this was actually at that tournament earlier this
yeah,
year.
this was just a week ago.
How did
Yeah,
I mi how did I miss that?
yeah, we were all at Louisville, and so we intentionally set that tournament up because we knew Peyton was going to be Bobby's daughter was going to be at Louisville, my daughter was at UNI, so we started with the 3 of our teams, and then we wanted to have an all female head coaching tournament, and so we talked to Jenny at Rice, and they're obviously a great program, so she joined us, and I think Alice is having a great experience at TCU.
Things that got past Lee in the preseason. However, in the pre-conference season, to my credit, there were days when there were 225,
Yeah.
230 matches on the Fridays and Saturdays. I'm so glad that we're finally gonna go to conference play, and there's only gonna be,
Listen,
like,
you've done an amazing job. You've done an amazing job.
well, thank you. I'll take that. Speaking of doing amazing jobs, what a great past week for the Creighton Blue Jays. And there must have been uh, after you were in 2 situations against Nebraska and then Louisville, where you lost the first 2 sets, took it to a fifth, could have had reverse sweeps, but didn't. Were you left with both frustration and optimism that you were on the right path?
It was interesting. The Nebraska match, I left that match saying, bummer how we finished the fifth. but a lot of good things, right? We were down 0-2, we were in a hostile environment, we battled, I found a lot of good out of that. Well, when we replicated at Louisville, I did not find good. I was pretty angry. And I told the team, like, this is not a moral victory. I think I even said, if anyone texts you and says, hey, way to fight back, that is not I really was like, this, once it happened twice, I was like, this is an issue and we're going to hit this head on. And really our focal point was starting faster. So that was what we really leaned into over the week. And, obviously we talked about some things on the court. We needed more production from some different positions. And I think we got that this weekend. And, just as we found things that we'll need to go back to the gym and work on that we didn't do well this past weekend, I think that's what we do as coaches. But a huge focal point was coming out aggressive, particularly I think behind the line sets a tone. And that was a big focal point that both against Nebraska and Louisville, it's like we got in such a big hole that we were like, oh, well, maybe we should serve aggressive and see if we can disrupt these offenses that score at like that hit 500 if they're in system. And so then we'd finally start, going after it some. And I thought against Purdue and Kansas, we came out trying to disrupt them some, which was, again, like I said, our big focal point. I also thought, particularly against Louisville, we weren't making digs early. I mean, as I'd said, we weren't making the special plays. It wasn't like we were terrible, but we weren't doing the special things to be great. And I thought we did a better job starting locked in, ready to go this weekend. So, it's early in the year. We're just trying to get better each time we step on the court. And I thought we did that this weekend.
I mean, everybody knew Creighton was good, but I think you got everybody's attention, first beating Purdue and then winning over Kansas at Kansas. I mean, that's good. And to your point about the serving, I see you have 52 aces and only 85 errors. And for an aggressive serving team, that's not bad. And when you serve tough and you're on there, and then you have the ability with the hitters that you have, especially Sis and Martin, to keep people on their heels.
Yeah, I would not say we are in that top 10 on aggressive serves. If you watch us, we're good. I think it's an area we can still take another step, but I do think it's philosophical. I think you're seeing some coaches go into the men's game mentality of we are going to rip it every single time, come what may. I don't know if I'm to that point yet. Like we have tempos that we're trying to hit. We're always radar gunning so we can tell our athletes whether they're hitting where we think it needs to be. But I'm not the type of coach that says, okay, you got one and now go for an ace. Like it's never about aces in our gym. It's always about disrupting the offense. If you can generate a 1.5 pass, maybe even a 2 pass against some teams, you neutralize them quite a bit. So that's kind of the discussion that we're having. And I think you can do that with tempo, you can do it with seams, you can do it with depth. There's different ways to do that. So and it varies match to match of what we're, against Purdue, we were really locked into tempo. Against Louisville, it was really trying to keep the ball away from the libero. So location became very important against them. So, it varies. And I think that's good for us to have different things that we're focused on. So hopefully, as we continue through the season, we can match up different ways.
Well, I've enjoyed getting the chance to see your team a few times. You're one of the two teams in the upper tier that I haven't seen in person, you and Kansas, but certainly got to see the two of you play. They're nice too. Nora Sis, and I qualify this with I would say this for a few of your positions. Nora Sis, when she's on, is as good as anybody in the country. Kendra Waite, when she's on, is as good as any setter in the country. Um, Bilinovich, the libero, when she's on, is as good as any libero in the country. And the key for you, I think, is both to stay healthy, especially in the postseason, which you lead the league in key postseason injuries, and for those players to be on all the time when it matters in December. Not to discount the regular season, but for what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think another thing that we really have to hang our hat on is getting production in out of all five hitting positions. And so, we're not, we don't have a Madison Skinner on our team or a Sarah Franklin that I think can just literally take over a match. Everyone in the gym knows where it's going and they still are getting kills. I think we have to be able to distribute and become a little bit more deceptive, which is what Kendra Wade, our setter, is really good at. She can kind of fling it from anywhere on the court. And so, if you assume it's going to go to the outside out of system, she can kind of distribute other places. So, but you're right. I mean, I think, staying healthy is the biggest thing, right? And then, getting better each week, regardless of who's on the other side of the court, is going to be a critical thing for us as we continue.
Great to catch up. I'll send you my mailing address, double X.
Double X. Okay, that was going to be my question.
The Creighton Blue Jays came in at number 6 in the inaugural 2024 VolleyballMag how do I call this? Gosh, Super 16 media poll. Can't even I don't have it written down in front of me on the computer. That's how bad off I am today. Anyway, legit, and it's always fun to catch up, and I appreciate it.
It's great to see you, Lee. Thanks.
And we're going to transition over to Emily Ehman right now. And through the magic of Zoom, now I'm joined by Emily. Emily, remember the time last year when we had Jen Oldenburg on from Ohio State last year, the year before, and I goaded her into we didn't have Ohio State T-shirts, and I wore a Michigan shirt. I kind of did this to hope that maybe Kirsten, who was on with me earlier, will hook us up. But Kirsten, so Katie, though, last week when I went to Pitt and Penn State, she showed up and she
Yeah.
and gave
That's
me
fun.
proud. It's beautiful. Yeah. For those of you worried about those college kids, they're getting really nice stuff. These shirts are really nice, and they have long arms, which is good for us with long arms.
Every time I walk into a gym now, I feel like that's always a topic of conversation of the team's gear and even their sweats or what it looks like, because I'm like, what the heck? We got nothing like that in college. I mean, we got some nice stuff, but man, everything's so nice nowadays. I'm jealous.
You had a week, huh? We both had a week. We both had I was so happy today, Monday, that there were no matches.
Yeah,
finally,
right.
the conference is over. I mean, going through, I try to read every single box score.
Yeah.
And when there's 215 matches, there were some of those sweeps. I just couldn't bring myself to click on them just to even see what the stats were.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, just this non-conference, one, felt really long, and two, I think that's because there were so many big upsets, so many big matches. I mean, listening to Nebraska and Louisville yesterday, and even just them talking about how many top 10 matchups there's been. I mean, there's no way there's been that many in the past. And I think the non-conference play, just talking to coaches, was exhausting. I mean, it felt like, you could never be too comfortable. And I was talking to one coach who I won't say their name, but I'm saying like, oh, congrats on the win, whatever. And they go ahead and lose to someone, not so great the next week. And we were chatting, like, I was like, it's really fun for us. Like, I'm so sorry for you guys, but our jobs are great because you never know who's gonna win and who's gonna get upset.
And like we said so many times, I mean, congratulations to everybody in volleyball for playing each other, the best team in volleyball. And I also commend the big schools that went to go play at the smaller schools. Tennessee might have lost at Wofford, but good for Tennessee for going. Ohio State went to Bowling Green. There were a lot of other examples like that, and they invited a lot of other teams to come in and play with the big kids, and that was really good. It helps grow the game. Well, I went in this morning, and I went through just to see. To your point, I mean, the ACC, 18 teams, and only 2 are undefeated. Pitt at 9-0, Syracuse 12-0, Syracuse 2-26 last year. So no matter what happens, and the only one in the Big 12, which has 15 teams, these numbers are funny. Arizona is 11-0, and the Big 10. Who would have guessed that we would be talking after the first 4 weeks, and the only undefeated team was going to be Washington at 10-0. The SEC, nobody. This was the one that got me. No team in the SEC went through unbeaten, but the team with the worst winning percentage is Kentucky at 6-5, and they had nobody. The SEC had nobody under 500.
But it's funny because Kentucky, because I remember last year, I think they started 3-7, I want to say, and then went off and rolled through conference play and only lost one singular match in conference play, won the SEC title. I mean, this is a Kentucky team that loves to test themselves early on. They definitely got that this season. They played Kentucky, Penn State, Purdue, Louisville, Stanford. I mean, it's a gauntlet.
Yeah, I mean, their losses: Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Louisville, Stanford. I mean, no shame in any of those,
Yeah. I'm excited. I have Kentucky this weekend against Auburn, and I've watched Kentucky play on TV, but I'm excited to see them in person because it's a team that has a lot of really good pieces that, there's a reason why they're getting votes to the top 15. They may not have the best record, but you can see the potential there.
So let me come clean. I haven't posted back to this because I've been out all day since this morning. We posted our poll, and we have 12 voters. They did a great job. But one of them accidentally, and I promise it was accidental, simply forgot Penn State. And we didn't catch it in the tabulations, as we went through it. Just, and it can happen. And so because of that, that's why we have 1 Pitt, 2 Nebraska, 3 Stanford, 4 Louisville, 5 Penn State, which, on the other hand, just because in a head-to-head there was one team beating another, that would be like saying, well, SMU should be ranked higher than, you know, Nebraska, right? Or
Yeah.
Miami should be ranked higher than Texas. Well, it doesn't work that way. But to the people who caught it and noticed that the numbers were skewed, Penn State definitely would have been 4 had Penn State been included in that ballot. So
Well,
it
the
happens.
thing too about the head to head, and I only run into this issue when the teams are right next to each other. And to be honest, late in the season, I don't really even weigh that if it was early in the season. For example, this for my top 20 poll, I have Minnesota 15, Baylor 16, and Baylor beat Minnesota, but I think Minnesota's wins are better all in 5. And I thought Baylor's losses, like they got swept by SMU, and I thought their losses were worse. So I don't know. It's situations like that where, yeah, a team might have beat the other team, but it depends on their other wins and losses because, as we know, those are very important. Like I had a lot of people on Twitter saying, well, what about Nebraska? How are they not number 1? They just swept 2 top 10 teams. It's like, well, do you remember that you got swept by SMU 2 weeks ago? These things seem to not matter anymore. And I get what you've done recently is important. And I would say 2 or 3 things to that. 1, you got swept by an unranked opponent. 2, you clearly haven't watched Pitt because they're a pretty dang good team. Or 3, you're just delusional. So
I went to Pitt last week to see him play Penn State, and I got to
yeah, how
tell
they
you,
look live.
yeah, it was an impressive team in every respect.
Yeah.
They have the most underrated player in the country, probably in Rachel Fairbanks, who
You think
runs
she's
the five.
underrated?
I think so because when we talk about, just in our casual
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation, we talk about the setters, and she's just fabulous in every aspect of the game, and she wins. I mean, the
Mhm.
kid's taken them to 3 national semifinals, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at the players who are back as sophomores, and they're so
Yeah.
big and strong. Olivia Babcock and Tori Stafford, and they're just good. They have depth, they have frontline power, and they have a chance to get a little bit better. Penn State, which just got steamrolled that night, I will predict for you that Penn State will improve more than any team because it's just young, put together, and see them in early December going to be really tough. I
Totally agree. I mean, even
Yeah,
watching that Pitt Penn State match, I couldn't watch it live because I had a match that night. But I mean, like you said, Pitt looks incredible. I don't think they have a lot of holes right now. A coach asked me the other day, like, okay, actually, how good is Pitt? I've watched them, but what
yeah,
do you think? And we were going through, all phases of the game, and they can do everything. And they showed it, in the match against Penn State. You rack up 7 aces, 11 blocks, you hit nearly 400. There's no holes on that team right now that we've seen get exploited. And this is a team with a lot of confidence headed into ACC play. I don't know necessarily if a team like Louisville is going to test them like they have in the past, because Louisville is still trying to figure out their, lineup and how things are gelling in a 6-2 system. But I agree about Penn State. They have such a high ceiling. When you have a freshman setter coming in, there's always a big adjustment period of how fast the game is, getting your hitters involved, and especially in the middle, what those connections look like. It's getting a lot better, but that team can improve so much. And they're already a very, very good squad.
and good for Louisville that Anna DeBeer appears to have gotten on track because she was
Yeah.
riding a pretty big offensive funk there for a while. She was really, really good against Nebraska, and
Well,
they
I
need.
mean, that her alone, the entire team gave that match was really frustrating. One, because I was so excited that it was on ABC. It was super well done. And, you just want a good game in those big moments. And I think it was tough because it's not like, Nebraska obviously played very, very well. I mean, they look so consistent right now. They look like one of the top teams in the country at their best. If not number 1, I think it'd be, obviously Pitt deserves that spot. But it seemed like that entire match, Louisville was just handing them points. They hit over 300, which is great, but Louisville gave them 25 points just on attack. So it was a frustrating game because I just wanted something good to watch on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would have been nice to have, a 5-set vicious battle for the TV
Yeah.
audience, but, no, Nebraska was very impressive. The single thing that jumps out at me about Nebraska right now is, Lindsey Krause, the new and improved, healthy, won her spot
Yep.
and is delivering in a big way. She's playing super. I'm looking at these are unofficial RPI, okay, but and we're only 9, 8, 9 matches in for anybody, 11, 12. But Nebraska, Pitt, Louisville, Creighton, Penn State, Stanford, North Carolina, Auburn, Florida State, Wisconsin, and coming in at 11 in the RPI, again, very unofficial, South Dakota State, which is 11-0. One of the
Fun.
yeah, there aren't that many undefeated teams. UConn, 12-0, and good for those people. But again, it's early. These early RPIs give you an idea of what comes from this really great non-conference schedule that people play.
Yeah, and to your point about Nebraska being number one, I think that's the frustration with some people of why they aren't number one. You've beaten Kentucky, Creighton, Arizona State. You swept 2 top 10 teams. Totally. Like they looked, I mean, the last time I saw them live was against Stanford. And I mean, that was one of the most complete performances that I've seen this entire season. They held a Cardinal team that had been hitting over 300 before, kept them to about 100. Andy Jackson, to me, is a complete X factor of that team and a piece that they didn't necessarily have last year as much production out of the middle, but she's averaging like, I think over 2.5 kills a set, and she's hitting over 500. She hit over 600 against Stanford. On the flip side, Stanford can score a lot of points offensively. That's a given. They have very good pieces all the way around. Kami Minor, in my opinion, is one of the best, if not the best setters in the country. They have a really big issue defensively. Their block is absolutely atrocious. Really, from all pins in the middles haven't been doing a good job either. Now, one of them's a freshman, so I get that takes an adjustment period. But I don't know if Stanford can go that deep with the defense that they have. Seeing it live a few times now, and they face Louisville on Sunday, which I'm on that match for. But diving into the tape, like they can score a lot of points, but they can't stop teams.
Well, earlier I talked to Kirsten Bernthal Booth, the Creighton coach, and you'll have
I'm
to
happy for them.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, I mean, how wonderful because a small private school without a football team, and right up there, they're really fun to watch. I mean, Nora Sis and Ava Martin and Kendra White and Belinovich, who was the Penn State libero, who's playing really, really well, and
Yeah.
they've got great pieces. If I were from Southern California, I would say defensively they're gnarly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you mentioned those pieces, and to me, I think the biggest reason why they're having a lot more success than last year, obviously, one, Norris is back, so that's one of the biggest things. But having Elise Getzinger in the middle has been massive for them. I mean, Kendra Waite, because she's so athletic and dynamic, finds her all the time, like 12 feet off the net. She's setting gaps, setting quick attacks. But man, Getzinger's putting up insane numbers. We oftentimes see her in the double digits in kills. Her efficiency is awesome. So when you have that piece along with the other pins that Creighton has, I don't think it's that big of a surprise that, they just took down 2 top 10 opponents. They're ranked their highest ranking in program history at number 6. I'm excited for this team that honestly now in conference play, I would expect and probably should roll through everyone.
Yeah, and that's a problem too from a top 4 seed RPI situation. Their RPI is only going to go down because the Big East, while it has some nice teams, I mean, we mentioned UConn 12-0. It's not the same as a lot of other schools. It's not like that they've beaten top teams, but nonetheless, and Marquette's always good and will be good and will be an NCAA tournament team. But to maintain that, I mean, Creighton has no chance to maintain that top 4 seed because its RPI is going to drop so much over the course of the next.
No. I mean, I think back to San Diego a few years ago, and I mean, this is literally copy and paste the exact same situation. If Creighton,
but that year, you had Pepperdine was good, and BYU
Yeah.
was in that conference, and Loyola Marymount was good that year. So you had a lot of teams and a couple other teams that were, pushing up.
Where's Creighton right now in the? I know it's unofficial, but where are they in that RPI?
Who's that? Creighton?
Creighton.
4.
Oh,
Nebraska,
see,
Pittsburgh,
okay.
Louisville. Yeah.
I mean, if you have a Creighton team that at the end of the season goes through conference play undefeated,
Hmm.
I would be personally frustrated, obviously, depending on how things shake out. I would be frustrated if that team is not going to top 4 seed.
Yeah, well, like, let's just say arbitrarily, I don't know, they play 16 games in their conference? I don't even know, but
I don't
let's
know.
just say arbitrarily they won 16, they'd be 27-2.
You
And
can't keep that out.
yeah,
Again,
but
depending on how things shake out, and obviously you never know what's going to happen at the top, but even, looking at the wins and losses right now, like, I don't know, there's some teams that are going to take some other losses that I don't know, maybe are good losses, but
I mean, that in conference play, they're gonna be just, bloodbaths. There has to be.
oh,
There's too many
yeah,
teams now because there's only 4 conferences.
yeah.
You know, you know, um,
So
teams
in
are gonna
that way,
one
does Creighton benefit from that because
right.
they, I guess it also depends how they win. If they just roll through opponents and, have 15 of 16 be sweeps or whatever it is, then that's, a lot more sound argument than, winning a lot in 5 or 4.
Yeah, a couple other teams that I love that I've seen. I watched a lot of what was the joke you made that I see 99.99% more volleyball than the average person goes. I I was complaining about something on TV to Emily, and she goes, "Well, the average fan needs that, whatever." But I really like watching Purdue, and
Yeah.
even though they struggle, I really like TCU.
Okay.
Uh, uh, uh,
We haven't even talked about Sarah Franklin against Marquette the other night.
no, and how about Lexi Almodovar for Dayton? She is legit. Dayton's in at 24 on the RPI. If you haven't seen them or her, it's worth a watch. She's really, really good. Oh yeah, Sarah Franklin just went off, right? There were a couple of monster performances in the last.
Yeah. I mean, 33 kills hitting over 500 against your in-state rival and a team that wasn't ranked, but probably, is receiving votes and all of that. I mean, she just does things that make your jaw drop constantly. The way that she's able to manipulate a ball mid-air, not even on a good set, an out of system ball, and just rip it inside to like the 5 foot line it's remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. I did their game against Texas A&M the other day, and she's just doing it constantly. And even when you know it's coming, it's an inside set, it's high, she still finds a way to beat 3 blockers. It's ridiculous.
How about Nina Kajic for Tennessee against Western Michigan? 42
Yeah.
kills in 4 sets. And she hit 500 with an assist, 13 digs, and 4 blocks. There were a lot of big lines coming up.
Didn't someone rack up like 40 kills last week?
Yeah, well, she had 42,
Oh,
and
42.
yeah, and
That's yeah, yeah.
yeah, a kid from Evansville, Julia Cardona, I think. She had big numbers. Lamar, player named Malinowski,
Yes.
um, Maja Malinowski had 33 kills, hit 441, had an ace, a block, and 15 digs in a 5-set win over Sam Houston. And good for Lamar for having a nice record. That was a program on life support a few years ago, and has come back and done a nice job. What? You're not in Lincoln. When do you go back to Lincoln? I mean, you
I
probably
don't
like
go
at the hotel there. It's probably like Norman Cheers. Emily.
Well, what's funny is I know the hotel front desk people really well, and BTN actually just switched from Marriott to Hilton, so I don't get to stay there anymore after my last trip, and I'm actually kind of bummed because I like that front desk and they're really fun. But no, I don't go back to Lincoln until mid-November. It's going to be a while. But this week I'm entering travel that's I'm already like exhausted thinking about it. I'm basically gone from Tuesday to Sunday through the next 3 weeks, but this week I've got border battle, Wisconsin, Minnesota on Wednesday. And then I go to Auburn for Kentucky Auburn, which I actually think is going to be a really good and kind of pivotal game. And then Sunday, I got a big one, Louisville, Stanford. And I haven't called a game at Louisville before. So I'm very, very excited for that.
Well, the Yum Center, which is becoming the site for big matches, is the place where the NCAA Division I championships are in December. It's a beautiful building. It's a
Yeah.
great place to watch volleyball. It'll be a great place for the Final Four.
Yeah.
So Wednesday, since you were kind enough to work up the list, Penn State, Purdue. That's
And it's at Purdue.
big. That's a big match for both teams. And
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Minnesota, big match. I mean, we're going to be saying this all year. In the Big Ten, has a chance to get a dozen teams in. And so does a few of the conferences. Don't be surprised, if you
That's
get
it.
double figure. Yeah, because we had a whole
Yeah.
other conference that's gone,
I know.
you
I
know?
had this. I had a long conversation with Jamie Morrison from Texas A&M before their game, and we were talking about the RPI. And he's like, you can say this in your broadcast. I don't care. I feel very strongly about it. Just getting rid of the RPI, which I understand. But I think for a team like a conference like the Big Ten, and we talked about this last year. In a way, it's good, but it also hurts them because of the caliber of opponent that you're constantly playing, and you're going to take losses, so it's going to keep you out. For some teams it helps, but for, others it does not because you're constantly losing.
I can see some athletic director not understanding, especially in the Big Ten. Somebody might
Totally.
finish 500 in the league and get their brains beat out and still make the NCAA tournament and get fired.
Yeah.
Say, "Oh, well, we're like 14th or something." I mean,
Yeah.
no, it's gonna be like that. Also, I didn't Wednesday, what a day. Miami, Florida State, and,
Yeah.
um, Arizona State, TCU. That's a big Wednesday again.
Yeah. I
Big.
thought that the Arizona State TCU one definitely caught my eye because TCU is obviously a program that is hanging with the best of them. You have a player like Melanie Parra who can go off, and I think Arizona State is going to have a really, really good year, potentially winning that conference. So I'm definitely excited for Wednesday. That's going to be fun.
When you watch Melanie Parra, she's so skinny, but she
She's
jumps
so
high,
small.
and her arm is just a whippet.
I
Just
know.
incredible. She's so good. Friday, Texas, it's Texas in the SEC. I'm still gotta,
I
wrap my
know.
head around that, but plays Texas A&M. Two schools that, if you don't know, they don't like each other in sports.
Well,
Uh,
and watching A&M, they're a very good team.
Logan
I think
He's legit, as good a right side as there is out there.
she is so good. I was really impressed with them. And then you have a Fennecosta Paula, who's one of, if not the best blocker in the country. And for a Texas team that's been very up and down, I would not be surprised to see the Aggies get an upset.
Well, they'll pack them in at, Texas A&M too, and the 12th man. If you've never seen a game there, it's different with this large crew of guys in uniform who lead the cheers. It's a different place. SMU, Georgia Tech. I mean, right from the get-go, the ACC,
Yeah.
and, Arizona State, Baylor on, that's a great Friday. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, Purdue, Minnesota. I mean, you know, Purdue's got it tough right from the start. We're going to be saying this every week. And then,
Yeah.
how about Sunday? Kentucky, Florida. I mean, the two SEC powers. You
Yep.
know, which in the pre-Texas years, going right after it, and then Stanford, Louisville. That's a great match. I'm so glad you have that one. And then
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech. I mean, that's a fabulous first week for volleyball fans. And
Totally. And I think, if you're Kentucky going into that, they play Auburn on Friday. And obviously, we already talked about they don't have the record that they would want currently right now. But this Florida team, you have Alexis Stuckey, who came back last week and looked absolutely phenomenal. You have Kennedy Martin back for that team. I think Kentucky's looking at that match a few weeks ago saying, thank God we get Florida when they potentially might not have some of their stars or when they're just coming back. But now I think it doesn't even matter because they looked so good last week, even in their, first week and a half back on the court.
Florida's a team that's got a chance to get better because of that. Because it's got some young players too.
Yep.
Well, I think we pretty much covered it. If you're just, you know, getting to this point, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Kirsten from Creighton earlier. And then it's always fun when Emily and I get together. At least I think so.
I think
Uh,
so too.
all right. Let's it's
Yeah. I gotta get
wait,
some
we
sleep.
were gonna get cocktails too. We forgot that for happy hour. I gotta go finish making dinner.
I'm gonna pass out right now. I'm so tired and we haven't even started conference play.
We're gonna stop now before Emily passes out. Thanks for watching. And Penn State, sorry. Thanks for the shirt, Katie.